Today I want to go over the TIKR Terminal, TIKR. Yes, it sounds like the stock tickers. So it has the promise of investing like Wall Street. Find the best stock, follow top investors, analyze businesses, and monitor your portfolio. Obviously, as I say later on, monitoring the portfolio isn't something that I've done too much here, but one of the things I do like about this is it gives you a lot of business-focused data, not necessarily credit, not necessarily stock data or sort of stock movement data, but really thinking about the business per se. So scrolling through here, it's got a lot of big promises and following top investors, finding the best stocks, analyzing businesses, looking at the fundamentals, then that's really what's important. Monitoring your portfolio easily, so using the watch list and using that as well. So there's a lot of good reasons, a lot of good things about this platform. Stick with me to the end and I'm going to let you know some of the elements about this platform, and I'll let you know my thoughts about what sort of investor I think is really going to benefit from this and what sort of investors might find this less useful. Now, I'm going to start this off as well by jumping straight into the pricing here. Now, the pricing, I think, is a little bit on the expensive side, particularly if you're paying monthly and if you go for annual. So what I'm looking at today is the Pro subscription here. It's got pretty much everything, global stock coverage, unlimited screens, all valuation metrics, whereas a lot of the other subscriptions don't. So the premium valuation metrics, when we scroll down, is very much focused on the REITs, for example, is what I use it for. So premium metrics here include REITs, net asset values, which is also quite useful for many investors as well. We've got a lot of history here for Pro, for full transcripts for everything. We've got 5 years out forecast analyst estimates, for example, and not so much for the free. I've got full global data. I've got 10 years of financial history. I've got 20 years of charting history. So this is fantastic. I've got a full range of the Investor Guru platform funds available. I've got unlimited market news feeds, for example. So it's got a lot of stuff here built into the Pro. If you're paying annually, it's a reasonable amount here at $30 US per month. Occasionally they do have sales as well, so you can keep an eye out for that. Now, let's get into the review. Okay, fabulous. So this is the TIKR Terminal. Now, like most of these types of operations, we can look at stocks. So I can type in a name, royalty income. It's going to give me O. I could also look for all sorts of other closed-end funds, for example. UTF, Current Stairs Infrastructure Fund. It does not, however, have the ETFs that you may expect. But rather it has them, but it doesn't have a huge amount of detail or insight into them. So essentially, when we look through these elements, it has news, financials, valuation, estimates, transcripts, filings, and ownerships. Now, even as we go through those, it's going to clearly be more relevant for stocks. So let's pull up a stock here. And we'll just pull up royalty income. Now, as we go through, the first page here gives us a little bit of background information here, both on valuation, a little bit on capital structure, as well as some of the efficiencies. We can click over and we can get the news. This is pulling from a number of different sources here. And we can pull up these stories. We can click on financials. Now this is, I think, the interesting element here. We can begin to look at, for example, the total revenues or the rental revenues here, and I can use the scroll bar here to go back 20 odd years. So for example, I can also hover over each of these bars to get a sense for what those revenues are, indicating the exact number. I can also change this to a line chart, which in my mind may make more sense. Now I can map other elements on here as well. I might want to track the year-on-year change, for example, and that might, for example, be easy for me to see the change in rentals. One of the elements that is quite interesting is the funds from free funds from operations payout ratio. And again, we can plot this here in terms of a percentage, and we can see that it has varied quite a bit from about the early 80s to early 90s, with quite a drop down at the end of 2023. So there's a huge amount of data here as well that we can look at. As we do look at these elements as well, we can begin to look at the balance sheet, and again, we can begin to map out how this company is looking, long-term debt, for example, increasing quite a bit there. We can also get data like preferred stock redeemable, for example, common stock, etc., etc. So there's lots of wonderful data that we can begin to pull up here. Cash flow statement, similar. Ratios, so we can get, for example, the return on capital, return on assets, etc. Some figures here for overall solvency and quite a few metrics there. Now, it does have an industry metric list at the bottom here with nothing, unfortunately, to display here. But in terms of long-term solvency, it's got, for example, the FFO interest coverage, which is quite a nice metric here for a REIT, and the type of metrics that we don't see on many of the other platforms. Segments is often quite useful in other companies, and we'll have a look at some of those later on. Now, another thing that we could look at here is we could also add other tickers to the chart. So, for example, innovative industrial properties, and it doesn't have such a long history, but for example, it's now plotting the same type of data here, and I can go through and I can select elements here that are going to be useful. MPW does have a long history, so for example, I could add MPW on here, and it's going to pop up quite a bit of long history. So if you look at this, for example, the MPW long-term debt appears to be advancing much more quickly in recent years than the realty income debt. And perhaps as well, when we look at just the FFO ratio for realty income has been fairly stable for MPW, though we see it had periods here in 2010, for example, it was very elevated, and it's become much more reasonable in recent years as well. And so this gives us the ability to very quickly add tickers and symbols and get a good sense of how they are performing. Now, the valuation tab should have brought up something there. Interesting. So when we look at the estimates, now we have estimates here, so 2021, 2022, 2023, you see these are annotated with an A, these with an E. Now if I hover over here as well, it will also give me the number of estimates there as a pop-up or hovering over sort of button, and as we go further out in the future, we see fewer estimates. Now, in terms of revenue, for example, you can see these estimates here for revenue, and also if you want to see this as a percentage change, which I think is sort of easier to follow usually as well, we can see that, and we can take them off just by clicking on those rows. So we can throw a lot of these details on here. Now, because it's a REIT, I think the FFOs are really important. Now, the FFO and the adjusted funds from FFO per share, quite useful, and here, for example, is the AFFO per share percentage changes. And we can see here in the 2023 year, only very small marginal gain expected, beginning to increase a bit in 2024 and 2025 and 2026, for example. Now, one of the beautiful things about the TIKR Terminal is it has these FFO and AFFO on the highest level of subscription. Now, a lot of subscription services do not have these types of data in and available to you for a REIT investment or people interested in REITs. Now, it also has a management guidance tab here, which obviously we see doesn't have a lot of guidance out for a long way here. And so different companies have a little bit more information there than others. We can also change to millions, thousands. We can change display currencies, number of decimals, and so we've got quite a lot of different periods and information we can change here in terms of the display. Now, I like it. It's quite a clean cut display. It's relatively easy to navigate and to look through. But one of my favorite elements here as well is the transcripts tab, and I can pop open transcripts so I can see the last earnings call. Now, it hasn't done anything fancy with this transcript, so I've just got to scroll through. I can, for example, begin to hunt through for, say, for the word lease, and so there's no easy way to navigate through this. There's no artificial intelligence applied, for example, to this, but it does give us the ability to look through these transcripts and analysts' calls very, very easily. It's all in one place. Now, the filings, for example, the 8Ks, quarterly presentations, 10Qs, for example, everything's all here, and we can just click straight through to the files that we're interested in. Ownership changes are all listed here as well. Now, as we go through other companies, for example, we might go through BlackRock, for example. Now we can begin to click on the valuation tab, and this wasn't available for some reason for realty income, but we can see a little bit of insight here in terms of the multiples, trading multiples, price factors, forward factors, trading factors, and there's all sorts of multiples here as well. You know, book value per share, dividends per share, etc. And of course we can plot all of this on here, and of course we could pull in other asset managers and sort of see how these other asset managers compare and how they look relative to say BlackRock here. And so we've got the ability to customize what we're showing it and how we're showing it, and we could stretch all the way back here quite happily. I'm going to change this to annual. It's quite a lot of data otherwise. And so there's a lot of details here. Another beautiful thing that we can do, I'm going to get rid of these, is we can also look at the street targets. So this is also quite useful because we can begin to see, for example, street targets here and how they're changing. Now, for example, buys and outperforms, we can see the buys began to increase up here in December quite a bit, quite steadily, for example, and that gives us some indication of how that's going. The stock price, target stock price divided by the close price, for example, we can map that out, and it can give us a sense of how the analyst opinions are changing with time, and how we can make sense of this. We can map the stock price target medians, for examples, or means, and again, we can get a sense for how this is changing with time. We can also look through the competitors. I generally don't find this to be as particularly useful in terms of the competitors that it's picking, but it's picking here competitors in the capital markets, insurance, banks, diversified financial. So it's picking the right segments as well to find competitors in. And so we can quickly look through competitors. We can quickly click over into the competitors, and we can pull up the competitor here as well. And so I think this is, you know, an easy way to get a feel for this element of the market. Now I can click on the market overview button as well, and it just gives me a really brief overview of what's going on, the major indices here as well, most active gainers and losers, and we can add news feeds on here as well. So we can add all sorts of fabulous options here as well. And so I've got another news feed here, and I can keep on popping them up quite a bit here as well. So I can get quite a range of different news feeds here where I can give them what I'm looking for, and I can very happily keep on top of the news. Watch lists. So I can add watch lists on here as well. You can see here an old watch list, for example. I can put on here what I'm looking for. So some of these metrics here in terms of valuations, as well. And so you can get a very good sense of what's going on with your watch list. You can add tickers, you can add different settings here as well. Now, one of the other fabulous things that I do enjoy about this is the track investing gurus. So you can look for a different style or a particular style, whether it's Berkshire Hathaway. I can click through here and then I can get a good sense of what is going on with Berkshire Hathaway. So I can see all the company listed names, percentage of the portfolio holdings, etc., changes in the shares outstanding, and all sorts of fabulous information here. So just clicking through several other portfolios here just to get a sense of what's going on. So if there's a particular investor or company that you really like the look of, you're very interested in what they're doing, it's a really good way of having a look at what they're doing and what they're up to. Now, as well as this, I believe it's pulling in the listings from overseas as well. So I think here Samsung Electronics, for example, is listed overseas. And so we've got, as well as the 13Fs, we've got other filings as well that it's picking up from around the world as well. So here also Brenntag SE, I think, is global European holding as well. And so it's picking up quite a lot of these other holdings for these companies and investment companies and firms that you're not going to find in some of the other sort of guru-focused websites. Now, as well as all of this, it's got the sort of the mandatory global screener as well. And so you can add quite a detailed list of screeners, all sorts of data that you might be interested in, and you can sort of set quite a wide range of different options here. And so it's giving you the ability to screen and do this very, very, very well. So here, for example, I was looking for REITs in New Zealand, and so you can search globally. So there's a small number of REITs in New Zealand, and we could, for example, pull these up as well. And it's going to give us the ability then to scan the globe to find out whether or not different investment options are of reasonable value, or whether or not they're sort of trading near to where analysts believe they should be trading. So that, in a nutshell, is the TIKR Terminal. Now, some of the key reasons that I do absolutely love this platform is, look, I like REITs. There's no two ways about it. I enjoy investing in REITs. And the TIKR Terminal here is one fabulous way for me to get, for example, these FFO and AFFO figures that many other platforms just simply do not have. It's got such a range of details, such a range of data and metrics here that is absolutely unmatched. Now, this is the top of the line subscription here as well, and so it gives me quite a few years out here in terms of these analyst estimates as well. I think if you take one of the lesser subscriptions, it only has a few years of the analyst estimates out into the future, and it may not have the REIT-focused sort of premium metrics here as well. So this is what I like about the TIKR Terminal. Yes, it is pricey. Could I do away with this? Could I replace all my other platforms with this? It's missing things as well. I've got to be honest, it's not the most visually sexy or appealing platform. Personally, it appeals to me. It's clean, it's tidy, it's simple. It does what I need to do. It's missing some elements as well. Like for me, it doesn't really work as well with all of the analyst data that I'd like. For example, I can't get a sense of how accurate the analysts are or have been in the past as I can with fast graphs. So there's little niggly things about it, but on the whole, it gives me global coverage. It gives me great REIT access. It gives me a lot of data. It gives me the ability here, for example, to display or change currencies into local currencies or US currencies. So it's got pretty much a lot of the stuff that I want to see here. I mean, it is missing elements here, such as, I think, connecting with my portfolio to really keep me on top of what's happening with my portfolio. So there are some things, certainly, where I think it could be better. It's an expensive platform. I think if you're a new investor, there's definitely other platforms that might have a simplified view, less data that you might, this might have more data than what you need or more details than what you're looking for. So I'd say this is more for a a more sophisticated investor, perhaps a REIT investor, looking to expand their ability to undertake detailed analysis. So hit me up in the comments down below. What do you think? Is this a suitable tool or platform for you? And if not, why not?